Our firm focuses on the experiences, the thing that has often come up in these panels and discussions. That's what we exclusively do. And our passion is around creating experiences that move people. Specifically, what we're interested in is a research-driven mindset and a passion about what moves audiences. What is it that causes them to behave in a certain way? And we want to design experiences in and around your suites that are more engaging and more involving and more memorable. And so that's our passion, but we back that up with a lot of research. And so for just a moment, I want to share with you a perspective and a state of affairs, but I want to share with you some tips, specifically 4 at the end, on what I think you can do to improve your fan experience in your venue. So our team was very humbled to be a part of the Jones family process for programming the experiences in the 91 acres that is the Star in Frisco. This project has come up several times in these sessions because it's a mixed-use development, but it's a mixed-use development built around the centerpiece, which is an indoor practice facility. So our assignment was to create fan experiences over the 91 acres. And where we would start with is often a clean slate, a blank sheet of paper. And we would go from that blank sheet of paper to sketch something that would bring to life something that would engage fans. And then we would go about the process of building those experiences and programming them into the real estate, with the purpose being, how can we magnetically draw retailers, tenants, but especially fans and visitors? And we would look toward, from the beginning, thinking about how can these moments be iconic? How can they be memorable? How can they be something that people want to tweet and Instagram about? And how can they be immersive so that they're captivating for the audiences? How could we measure their impact? And possibly, could they be brought to life by a sponsor? And if sponsor partners brought these experiences to life, could we measure them? Could we measure the sponsor's return on investment, return on experience, so to speak? But the most iconic way that you can measure whether or not you're creating a fan experience is if they make your experience a part of their story. Scott in the previous session talked about the social media currency. We believe that philosophy as well. And if fans are making your experience part of their story, that means it's memorable, it's meaningful, it's powerful. The Cowboys headquarters was a brand new build, that 91 acres, but we were asked by the Oklahoma City Thunder to renovate part of their concourse that had kind of gotten drab and dull. The assignment here was to create an engaging kids space, to create something that the kids could have that would be monumental and memorable, but also could serve as a piece of sponsor inventory. And so we created the OU Children's Physicians Thunder Fun Zone for kids. And it was a place where kids could come back again and again and be a part of an immersive experience that not only drew them to the Thunder brand, it also drew them to the brand of the individual players. It allowed them to compare their own stats for performance against those of the players. And they would come back again and again to update those measurements. So that's our point of view. Sometimes we're called into new context, sometimes we're called into existing context to renovate. But typically the objective is the same. How can we move the audience? How can we enhance the fan experience? And as we fix those problems, you, and working with you and your peers, you've shaped our point of view. And there's a trend we're seeing that's troubling. And for just a moment, as friends, I'd like to talk with you about the trend, if it's okay. We don't really like to come out and say it so bluntly, but here it is. Ready? Attendance is down. It's down. And we spin the statistics every which way we can rather than acknowledging the real problem. Attendance is down. Sometimes occupancy of suites are down. But where's the problem? Is the problem in our product? Is the problem in our industry? Where's the problem? The phenomenon I see is something we can solve And I want to share with you a perspective of why I believe that's the case. First, I want to take you to a deeper dive into the problem. Just as the previous panel said, one of the things we're noticing is not everybody is experiencing a declining in ticket sales. In some cases, ticket sales are up or flat. Part of that is because of the resale market. But in some cases, what we are seeing is the fact that individual ticket sales are up, season ticket sales are down. In other words, the consumer is far less likely to commit for some sort of long term than they are for one occasion. Well, that's particularly troubling to those of us who sell long-term contracts over multiple years. What do? Well, here's what I want to comfort you with. You're not alone. Mintel is one of those industry analyst group that tracks a lot of trends, and they track the bar trend. People consuming alcohol on locations in restaurant and bars. And one of the things they've noticed is overall, there's a decrease in alcohol consumption at bars. There's a dramatic decrease among consumption by women in bars, and by consumption of older consumers at bars and low-income consumers. But sales of premium alcohol is actually up, so that overall trend is just slightly down. And what Mintel's advice is that bar owners are going to have to create curated experiences if they want to keep the consumer from consuming the alcohol in the home, and alcohol consumption at home is actually up. Same thing is true for dining out. Mintel also covers the restaurant sector, and they said in order to stand out in this competitive landscape, food operators are going to have to do more than just provide great food. They're going to have to provide a memorable experience. So what's happening? What's happening is it's a change in consumer behavior. It's not a problem with us. It's a problem with how consumers spend. Let me take you in that data. You've heard of FOMO before, but let me go ahead and tell you quantitatively, FOMO is driving consumer behavior. In fact, my backup data on this is none other than Charles Schwab. They did a wealth index survey in 2019 or for 2019. And they showed that more than a third of Americans are saying that indeed they do fear missing out and that they're spending as a result of the fear of missing out. In fact, troubling to Schwab was they're actually spending more than they have because they want to keep up with the experiences that others are having on social media. Raise your hand if you post photos of your food. Go ahead. Go ahead. It's okay. You're safe. You're among friends. In fact, 52% of younger consumers post photos about their food. What analysts are saying is that we're now eating first with our eyes and secondly with our stomachs. The food not only has to be great, it has to look great. The customer experience is something that everybody is focused on, and research shows that consumers are spending more on experiences than on luxury goods. 88% of parents say they'd rather spend money on experiences for their children than on goods for their children. 70% of consumers who go to theme parks would rather spend money on an upgraded or elevated experience than on the normal ticket at a theme park. 2/3 of moviegoers say they go because of the experience in the theater with the upgraded seats, the reclining seats, the food at your seat experience. Fidelity Investments did a survey in 2018, and their research showed that 25% of us say that after a long, hard week, what we would rather do more than anything else to relax is have some sort of experience. Who's causing all this? This woman. Actually, she's not causing all of this. This is Laurie Santos, and you may have heard about her. She has nothing to do with sports. She has everything to do with psychology. You see, Laurie is a professor at Yale, Ivy League school. And Laurie happens to teach a class at Yale called Psych 157. It's Psychology and the Good Life. It's the most popular course at Yale ever. When Laurie offered her content to Coursera, an online learning app, the first session, 255,000 students signed up for her class. If you were to summarize the thesis of Laurie's work, here's what she would tell you. Chances are, whatever you think will make you happy, a bigger paycheck, a bigger house, or a fancy degree, will actually become routine after you get it. So here's her advice. 2 things. 1, buy experiences, not things. And 2, practice gratitude. I'm thankful that you're listening still to practice gratitude just for a minute. And I hope you are having a good experience. What I want to tell you is that consumers are reading this. They're taking these courses. They're seeing this in their news feed, and they're starting to realize that now beyond goods and luxury items, experiences are things I need to go for because Laurie and the research says it will make me happier. In fact, the same thing happened at the Society of Personality and Social Psychology's annual conference this year. The same 2 suggestions outside of Laurie's research from their own research. So, consumers are voting with their dollars, and what's happening is they're saying there's such a FOMO out there, and they want lasting happiness, and the winner is experience. And research shows you, and you know this from the videos of fellow parents, that the anticipation of an experience, right? Those videos of parents telling their kids they're going to Disney World. They're not at Disney World, they're simply telling their kids they're going to Disney World, shows us that there's something in the human emotion that fuels the anticipation of an upcoming experience. And experiences are shared and social relationships equal happiness. It tells us that sports events, if attendance is down, somehow aren't making the cut. This was foreshadowed 2 decades ago by 2 authors by the name of Pine and Gilmore. This is their revised cover of their book called The Experience Economy. But sometimes prophets have no fame in their own country, right? And so we didn't listen to them carefully 2 decades ago. And so they said things like, now imagine this was written 20 years ago. From now on, leading edge companies, whether they sell to consumers or businesses, will find that the next competitive battleground lies in staging experiences. They went on to say that before a company can charge admission, it must design an experience that customers judge worthy of the price. Excellent design, marketing, and delivery will be every bit as crucial for experiences as they are for goods and services. About 7 years ago, they wrote a follow-up book, and what the follow-up book said was, when we create experiences, they must be authentic. In other words, they must be true to, in your case, the team as the brand. We can't sell out our experiences and theme them for the sponsors because it's inauthentic. They have to be aligned to the data, to the narrative, to the story of the team. So the good news is we're not alone. Every industry is facing pressure to improve the experience for their audiences. You may have read that American Express bought the online restaurant reservation app called Resy. I don't know if you've heard of Resy or not. It's the equivalent of Open Table, but it's much more special. It's very boutique-like and curated. And American Express released this statement when they bought Resy. They said, we're buying Resy to create experiences that make us essential to our customers. McDonald's bought Dynamic Yield to better improve the customer experience at point of sale. Nike is using big data to personalize the experience in store. The sports academics are talking about this at the Marketing and Science Institute. Every year, the fan experience comes up. And the organizations who are succeeding have learned to focus on more meaningful, memorable, authentic experience. But part of it is that we're focused on the problems. the negatives, the long lines, the parking problems. But successful companies aren't obsessed with the problems. Successful companies are obsessed with elevated moments. Because elevated moments are those that stick with people. They're memorable. People remember them. We don't remember Disneyland or Disney World because of the long lines, because of the high prices, because of the large crowd. We remember them because they focus on elevated moments. Theme park guests, remember, will pay more for an elevated experience. Elevated experience have an afterlife. They spin out on social media and create part of that FOMO that says, I want to be a part of that. In fact, Cornell University did a study that said when we tweet and Instagram about an experience, ready for this? We actually remember it more. So we talked about the problems. We've talked about the consumer trends. We talked about how successful companies are responding. Now what do? First of all, we have to focus on the experience journey for the customer, for the fan, their walk path. We take a design thinking approach at our place. It focuses on the human needs and starts with those at the center of the problem, being empathetic to the human aspect of the problem. What we've got to realize is that the game itself going on the field, on the court, on the rink is not enough. We can't be dependent on that performance. We'll be wrong 50% of the time. What we have to do is, like Simon Sinek says, we've got to focus on the why. Why do people come to our venue? Why do people want to be in our suites? Are they coming to see a competitive exchange? Are they coming to be entertained? Are they coming for an escape? Are they coming to enjoy time with family? Are they coming to enjoy an engagement opportunity to do business with a business prospect? We've got to understand the why. And we've got to be focused on creating a memory, and one that's better than what's taking place just on the field. So let me offer you 4 takeaways. First, invest in experiences. Stop obsessing over the problems and invest in experiences. Experiences that build memories and excitement and that don't depend on the outcome of the game. We can't control the wins and losses. If we depend on the game, then again, half the time we'll be disappointed. Let's make sure that our fans, our guests, have a better, more memorable experience because of us than just what happened at the game. Let's also focus on peaks and ends. Now, this is a theory. I'm going to unpack this for you for just a moment. But instead of obsessing over the negative, over removing all the obstacles, and by the way, there'll always be obstacles, let's instead focus on peaks and ends. When companies start focusing on managing the experience, they realize that we can only do so much for the negative experiences. But what can we do for the positive experiences? Chip and Dan Heath are 2 scholars, one at Stanford and one at Duke. And they've written all kinds of books that we've loved, including Made to Stick. They wrote this one. If you haven't read it, you have to get it, called The Power of Moments. And in that book, they talk about this peak-end rule. And they say that people rate their experiences based on 2 moments. The peak, that could be the best or the worst, but it's the peak and the end. And sometimes the game, if it's a win or a close game, will provide the peak. Sometimes it's the best, sometimes it's the worst. What we've got to do instead is focus on ourselves, on creating that peak, and on how the moment or the experience ends, because that's what people will take with them. That's why Disney World and Disneyland has been so thoughtful of how you exit their parks and what they can equip you with as you exit the park to make that end experience your lasting memory. Thirdly, and this is tough for us, but we've got to break the script with surprise and delight. That's right out of Dan Heath and Chip Heath's book, The Power of Moments. You see, familiarity and memorability are at odds. Familiarity and memorability. See, memorability is about surprise and delight. It's about the moments where we break the script. And memorability is often the peak. But the very nature of a luxury suite is such that it's familiar. You see, it's the same space, with the same food, with the same terms, repeated over and over and over and over, because that customer, that fan, that suite holder wants something predictable. They want to know what they're getting for their money. It's all about the familiar. But we've got to challenge ourselves to take a page from Chip and Dan Heath and break that script with something that is surprise and delight. So the third takeaway is break the script with surprise and delight. Fourth and lastly, we've got to design experiences from the beginning with the human in mind, knowing that the human wants to Instagram and tweet. They want to convey their story in a way that is enviable. They want experiences to be a part of their story and their peak moments. And so the whole luxury suite experience has to be built around not just sharing it with a few people in your suite, in your premium area. It has to be built around sharing it with your audience, the larger audience at hand. So we've got to design those peak end moments to be shared on social. In other words, we can go down the path of least resistance and hope our fans will say, wow, what a game. Or we can curate, design purposefully, navigate a walk path so that fans say, wow, what an experience. And we can flip the table on the trends that we're seeing negatively impacting us and create more memorable, authentic, measurable experiences. I think we can do that. And I think we can do it in new build situations, and I think we can do it in renovated situations. And I think the result will be more powerful fan experiences. We've got some research studies, and if you would like to have a copy of those, we've done some original research in this field. If you'll text Advent to 797979, cellular text rates apply. If you'll text Advent to 797979, you can find out more information and download copies of our studies there. I hope you have a great conference. Thanks for letting us be a part of it. We appreciate it.